Raider Nation, what is going on? It's your boy Sanjit back at it with another video. Today, I have my older brother, and we are going live to break down Raiders football. I appreciate everybody that's here today. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Just been a crazy season, man. Full with all kinds of different stuff going on so far.
And we're going to talk about all of it, everything. The last time we talked was before the season started. So the team's much different today than it was at that time. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it. I have my coffee here. Let me know what you guys are drinking in the comments below. Appreciate everybody that's always already here. Dominique said, can't wait, fellas. Unknown Raider guy said, what's up, Raider Nation? Amrit Paul said, hey, bro. I appreciate every single one of you guys that's already here. Some great comments. Someone mentioning something about Kuljit telling me to get a haircut. Shout out to you, Carlos. I appreciate it, man. Let's get into this, man. I see some of you guys already saying that you guys are drinking coffee. That's what's up, man. Let's get into this. It's interesting because the Raiders this year started off hot and then they kind of fell off. We're 5-2, and then you kind of fall off a little bit. I want your thoughts. Like, what do you think happened to this team?
I think the two big obvious things that is obviously John Gruden and Henry Ruggs, right?
Absolutely. And it's crazy because the John Gruden situation really came out of nowhere, right? Like if a coach gets canceled or if a player's going to get canceled, you don't really think it's going to happen to the Raiders, but it happened and it really ruined our season.
Yeah.
Interestingly, a lot of people right after the Raiders, right after Coach Gruden got fired, we won 2 games back to back, 30+ points in both games. Broncos, Eagles, and Carr looked great, right? He was on fire. He's making every single throw. But now it's like we've scored like 15 points in like 7 of our last 9 games, right?
You know what? And yeah, you're right. We've had one really just since those 2 first breakout games, we've had one game where we're actually even competitive and good as an offense, which was just the Cowboys game, right?
Yeah.
And interesting enough in that game, I think one of the main reasons we were good is because of Deshaun Jackson and his deep threat. He was kind of able to replace some of that production that Henry Ruggs was giving us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then I think it's just we really lack that deep threat to the point where Henry Ruggs was doing that, regardless of if you think, hey, he wasn't getting all these catches, there'll be 30, 40 yards, but just the threat of him and taking the safety deep made the difference.
Yep.
And the one game where we had that, where a receiver was able to stretch the field, was the Cowboys game, and we looked great.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. Like, Deshaun Jackson was the difference in that Cowboys game.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense why we haven't had him involved more, right? Like, you look at this past game, I think he had 1 target. And it's not like he wasn't open. There's at least 2 plays that Deshaun Jackson was open.
You posted them.
Yeah, and even the week before the Cowboys game, Deshaun Jackson, and although I understand, it was really like his first or second week with the Raiders, this isn't his first or second week, right? Against this past opponent, he's 4 weeks on our roster.
I can't figure. Maybe he's just prone to getting hurt. I mean, he is like 34, 35. So maybe they want to kind of limit his snaps. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe it's he doesn't understand the whole concept of the playbook yet, where they basically like tell him, hey, go deep or do this, So when they're trying to go quick, they can't really be in there telling him, hey, Deshaun, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Either you have the plays down or you don't. So, I mean, I don't know. It could be that. I have no way to know.
Yeah, so JD WHS says losing Ruggs was what led this team to go downhill. But is it one player can really have that big of an impact? Like, you would think, you have a quarterback like Derek Carr. Some people say he's a top 7-8 quarterback. You wouldn't expect one player, especially then a wide receiver. Wide receiver doesn't really matter. It's a receiver at the end of the day, right? A quarterback makes or breaks a wide receiver. But a wide receiver has that much of an impact that our offense can no longer put up points.
I think it's not so much as the receiver. I think it's what he did. He specialized as a deep threat, and it made everyone else better. I feel like
that makes sense.
Him taking the safety deep, opening the middle of the field for Renfro and Waller was the big difference. I feel like. So I mean,
absolutely. So there's 2 questions here. Anthony says we can still fight for the playoffs if we win this week against the Chiefs. Raider Body also says something similar. Do you think we can slip into the playoffs 9-8 if we beat the Browns, Colts, and let's say the Chargers? I do think the playoffs are not out of the question, right? We're 6-6 at the moment. We have 5 games left, I believe. We got the Chiefs, we got the Colts, the Browns, Chargers, and Broncos. Those are the 5 games left.
I mean, record-wise, it's where it's not, but you got to really look at the way we played the last 6 weeks. I mean, or whatever we've been. We're 1-4 the last 5 weeks. I mean, if you consider that, I don't think the playoffs are going to happen.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see us making the playoffs specifically because of the way this offense is playing.
And another thing is cold weather. You know, the last 2 years our team falls apart or starts playing worse offensively in cold weather, and the weather is not even that cold, and we're already starting to
fall off.
Big difference.
Absolutely. Now, I will say this: I wouldn't be surprised if we I wouldn't be surprised if we won the rest of our games. Our team can beat all of these teams.
I would.
Why? What would surprise you about if the Raiders won the rest of these games?
We lost to the Giants, who are bad to I can't even say mediocre. Washington's mediocre, and we lost to these teams. So what makes you think that if the way we played against those teams moving forward, we can't beat these other teams? There's no way we're not going to stand a chance against the Chiefs this week either.
We lost to these teams, but we lost because the offense couldn't score points.
Exactly.
Right. It's not like it's the defense that's allowing 60 points a game or whatever, right? And we're losing because of that, right? If the offense gets back on track, we can still win, right? Last year, we were the 10th best offense. And some would argue that we were better, at least coming into this year, because guys like Bryan Edwards, among others, had gotten better, right? So when you think about that, could the Raiders not get back to being a top 10 offense? And if we did, let's say the offense, it's one thing if the offense is putting up 28 points and we're losing games. The offense isn't doing that, right? But there's no reason why the offense can't be doing that, right? And let's just throw the hypothetical out there. What if the Raiders switched Derek Carr for Marcus Mariota, and going forward, we score at least 28 points in the rest of our games, right? And our offense looks more efficient.
That's also a big if. There's no guarantee Mariota coming in is going to mean we're going to score 28 points. I'm not a fan of Mariota. I'm a Carr guy, but I mean, if we were to score 28 points with him coming in, I'd be all over it. We could go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Raid the Tape. Shout out to you, man. If you guys are not subscribed to Raid the Tape, I'll probably be on his channel a little bit later on today. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He said, we went from Aguilar and Ruggs, top 10 rush attack, to Edwards and Jones, bottom 5 rush game. I'm gonna break this down real quick. Last year people were saying our run game wasn't that good. And it really wasn't that good last year, right? I think one of the reasons why people wanted to replace the guys that we had was because our win rate running the football wasn't that good. I don't know if we had a top 10 rush attack. Maybe Josh Jacobs' rookie year we did. I don't know about this year. In terms of talent, I do agree. Our talent is worse this year, right? Aguilar and Ruggs, you're right. We went from those two guys to guys like Edwards and Jones. Although I wouldn't use Edwards and Jones. I would use Hunter Renfrow, Deshaun Jackson, and Darren Waller. But you're right. Our offense did get worse in certain aspects. But we couldn't have predicted the Henry Ruggs situation, right? If we had Ruggs
or the Gruden situation,
and I think coaching is also one of the reasons why the Raiders have fallen off, especially on the offense of the ball. When I watched the All 22 tape, it's so much more predictable when Greg Olson's out there. Yeah. With Coach Gruden, we were going in motion. We would line up in one formation and then switch it right before the play begins.
Now that you said that, what's funny is I remember when the Olsen switch got made and everyone was saying, oh, he simplified the offense. He simplified the offense, and everyone was talking about how great that was for the team. Is that really great in 2021?
I don't think so.
You shouldn't be simplifying anything. You need to have as many. Yeah, you need to have as much motion action, as much, just eye candy, as they say, just have all that stuff. And simplifying the offense is not it, in my opinion.
I agree. You look at Sean McVay's offense, and Sean McVay's, motioning guys, and you know what, when you line up out there, and the defense goes ahead and says, all right, the tight end's on the right, and the running backs over here, and the quarterbacks over here, they're gonna line up. If you make a motion or you make a shift, the defense doesn't change their entire look. They're gonna stay in that look. Mm-hmm. So you can go from having, let's say, a strong side linebacker on the right side, and you can force that guy now to be the weak side linebacker by just motioning your guy and then maybe putting him in a bad situation. And you're right, it's eye candy and just getting those mismatches. And I feel like the Raiders are no longer doing those type of things, right? Some people are saying that Gruden set us back 5 years. We're rebuilding right at this point. We are rebuilding. We got the first super chat of the day. Big shout out to Raid the Tape. He said, "What's good, big bro KT?" Shout out to you, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Man? What's up?
We gotta we're gonna go live later on Raid the Tape channel, so make sure you guys are subscribed to him. Shout out to you, man, for the first super chat. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, super chats, you will absolutely be featured on the channel. Shout out to all of you guys. You know, you mentioned you don't have the faith in Marcus Mariota.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Carr guy.
Mm-hmm.
And typically speaking, I would agree with that, right? I think Derek Carr would be better than Marcus Mariota.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, after watching the tape, Derek Carr has missed so many guys open. He's not making the correct reads. He's checking the ball before he needs to. Like Josh Jacobs had 8 catches this past game. He's not a wide receiver lining up and running routes. Like Derek Carr is throwing him the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Those are the types of things that, in my opinion, are hindering the Raiders' offense, right? I want to see Derek Carr make those 20-yard throws. Why throw the ball 5 times for 5 yards each and pick up 25 yards when you can just make one pass for 25 yards? And I'm not saying every throw is going to be a 25-yard
but
throw.
I mean, are the receivers getting open down the field, especially without, I mean, this past game, we didn't have Waller, which is...
Let me ask you this. If the receivers aren't getting open, how is Derek Carr the number 2 passing yards leader right now? I mean, he's not throwing it to himself, right?
A lot of those yards came in the first couple of games when Gruden was there, too.
Absolutely. A lot of them definitely did come in the first 4 to 5 weeks. But Derek Carr also has guys, you know, let's face it, the Raiders right now are number 3 in yards after the catch, which means Derek Carr's throwing his receivers the ball for 2, 3, 4-yard throws. And I think that is hindering the Raiders' offense.
And that's always been check down Carr. I mean, that's what he's always been that. But I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I just want to see more from the Raiders offense, you know, and I don't right now, Derek Carr's not providing that. And I don't know for what reason the coaching staff's not willing to make that shift. It almost seems like they're kind of stuck and they don't want to make that shift. Because at the end of the day,
Carr's also the franchise guy. He's been there for 8 years. Mariota's on a 1-year, like $3 million deal right now. So, I mean, that's part of it too. So,
but technically speaking, Carr's only has next year, and then he's not.
No, that's true.
You know, technically, and again, I don't get it, right? Like, to me, it seems like if you're not going to make that switch this year, you're not making that switch because Derek Carr is your guy next year.
But to be fair, what if they just see it in practice? Like, hey, Carr absolutely understands the ins and outs of the offense. He's there on the line of scrimmage, able to control everything, and Mariota just is not doing that right now. So, I mean, like, if Carr's just heads and shoulders better than him in practice, it's kind of hard to make that change, you know?
Absolutely, which is understandable. If Derek Carr understands the offense in a much more manner than Marcus, I could understand that, right? But I can also see Greg Olsen calling a play and Marcus Mariota running that play and executing it better than Derek Carr right now, right? Not saying he's better in the long run, but right now, Derek Carr's not playing well, at least in my opinion. And, you know, if you guys haven't seen my video from yesterday, you know, there's some issues with the offensive line. There's some issues with, in my opinion, the scheme, which we kind of talked about, throwing for 2, 3-yard passes. But Derek Carr's also missing guys. Yesterday, he made at least 7 incorrect reads, right, in my opinion. And that was me taking out 3 or 4 plays, not showing you guys 3 or 4 more plays. So there are at least 10 bad reads by Derek Carr in this past game. And the thing is it's not like Derek Carr's missing his reads and we're scoring 35 points a game. We had 12 points until we kicked the field goal, right, at the end of the game. And that, too, even on that last 3rd down play, Josh Jacobs was wide open for a walk-in touchdown.
I saw
right? Those are because think about it. If we score a touchdown on that play, it's a completely different game.
I mean, to be fair, though, so, I mean, in that play, he did throw the ball down the field to the end zone instead of taking the check down, which, I mean, you know, you don't think, hey, this check down's going to get me a touchdown based on. I
don't have an issue with the throw at all, right? I'm perfectly fine with the throw. But Derek Carr also, he knew right before the play that, hey, this guy's about to blitz, and he made his mind up. He said, I'm going to throw it to Zay Jones because the guy over Zay Jones is blitzing, so that's going to be my hot read. He takes the ball, he looks to his right, and he comes back to his left. He knew he was going to his left. He only looked to his right to try to move the safety. He looked to his left, and he throws the ball to his left. But the thing is that was a predetermined play, right? I want to see Derek Carr actually make his progressions, because had he made his progressions, he would have seen that Josh Jacobs was wide open. Mm-hmm. And to me, it almost seems like maybe he's scared that the offensive line's not going to be able to hold up. And I don't know if saying he's scared necessarily, but he understands that the offensive line might not hold up. He may understand that, something else could potentially happen. But Antonio says, Carr plays horrible against the Chiefs. Time to start Mariota and see how he does moving forward. Thank you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. I will say this, right? And I want to know what you think about this. At this point right now, does it make sense to say, hey, we're 6-6. Let's see what Derek Carr can do when we've already seen over, a ton of games the past couple of weeks, how he struggled a little bit, right? Does it make sense to say, let's just continue with Derek Carr and just give him the Chiefs game, the Browns game, the Colts game? And if we lose all three, then the last 2 weeks, we'll go ahead and start Marcus Mariota. Or does it make sense to say, hey, Derek Carr has already shown us what he's done. Let's go ahead and put Marcus in because we still technically have a shot at the playoffs.
Okay, so let's just say we do bring in Mariota in and he sucks, right? He just stinks it up.
You make the switch back.
At that point, is it too late? Does Carr lose the locker room, or does he just get upset? Like, hey, I've been here for 8 years, been the guy, and you just bench me just like that. Like, what's that doing to the locker room?
I mean, I don't know because we're not in the locker room, right? From players that I've spoken to, there's some players, not necessarily about Derek Carr, but there's some players that have taken shots at our coaching staff, right? Unwilling to make changes, right? And the thing is I'm not going to ask a player what they think about Carr, right? I would never do that, but it almost seems like guys aren't fired up to come out there and play. And who's the leader of this team? Right, I could make the argument after what Josh Jacobs said in his presser that
it is Derek, but
is he really the leader? Do players really play for Derek Carr?
But see, the thing is, when he has a bad game, it's kind of different. Then, if he's having a great game and things are going great, he's the guy. He's out front, talking to the media, joking.
Yeah,
and then you even see it in his press conference, post game press conferences. Washington, when we win, he always comes out, has a little joke or say something. This one, he just walks out there all quiet, and the media just starts asking him questions.
Yeah,
that's just human nature, I guess.
So obviously, there's issues with Carr. There's issues with the offensive line. There's issues with the receivers. There's issues within this team. Omar makes a good point. He says our biggest problems is drafting 3 first-round busts. I know if Tom Brady is on a team, if we can't build on the draft, we have no business winning. Basically saying we can have Tom Brady, we can have Aaron Rodgers, we can have whoever it is, but if you can't draft correctly and you can't build a correct team.
And it sucks. We had all those picks too. Like, we really had a chance just to just become an elite team basically if we had a hit on those picks.
We had 6 picks in the last 3 drafts in the first round, I believe.
Yeah.
Cleveland throws a bust. Josh Jacobs doesn't make sense to take a running back in the first round. Jonathan Abrams been up and down.
I've made this case for Abrams. What he's good at, he's really good at, and that's playing around the line of scrimmage. Obviously, it's apparent he's pretty bad in coverage.
Yeah,
but he is really you can almost say he's an elite box safety.
Yeah,
absolutely. Not a deep safety at all. But when he's closer to the line of scrimmage, able to get guys, running backs in the backfield, all that stuff, he does that at a really good level.
Absolutely, and that is, I do agree with that. That actually he is,
but that's not 2021 football either. That's 2008 football.
I don't know if that's necessarily true, right? You look at Landon Collins for the Washington football team before he got hurt. He played that. He went from safety to that box linebacker role. You look at Jamal Adams, Jonathan Abrams. It's all about scheme fit.
That's true. I mean, I guess you can make another designated position and call it a box safety.
Absolutely.
And we play 2 safeties back anyways in Levette and Merrick. So.
It's similar to Isaiah Simmons, what he does for the Cardinals. It's similar to what. Obviously, Micah Parsons doesn't do it yet, but he will start doing it where maybe they,
I see with Micah Parsons, I feel like he's an elite pass rusher, and that's where you're going to want him now.
Maybe.
Kind of like Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was that, he can play linebacker, he could do this, but at the end of the day, he's a DM.
So since we're talking about Micah Parsons a little bit, just real quick, I talked to some football minds in some group chats. One of the things that was said with Micah Parsons next year, what's going to be expected of him is he'll basically be a 3-4 outside linebacker that will jump out and cover slot receivers, which is going to be interesting because,
but that takes away from what he's elite at.
But he'll also be able to come off the edge, right? So it's not like he's just going to.
Yeah, but why take him away? If you have an elite pass rusher, pass rushing is the number one thing on defense, basically.
It's interesting because the Raiders have drafted so many of these players. And we could have traded up for Micah Parsons. Everyone knew what this guy was going to be. Right?
I mean, he was the number 1 guy on your board.
He was the number 1 guy on my board. Number 1
overall player. Or
absolutely.
Something.
Yeah. I think he went with the 11th pick, I believe.
Yeah.
2 years ago, these Pittsburgh Steelers traded 2 first-round picks for Devin Bush. They jumped up from number 20 to number 10, and they took Devin Bush. They took their linebacker of the future. Devin Bush is good. I would have loved for the Raiders to potentially trade up and get Michael Parsons. I don't know if it's 2 first. It might not have been 2 first. It could have been a first and a second that they gave to the Broncos. But I would have loved for the Raiders to go out and get a guy like Parsons because we're struggling with our draft picks. And it almost seems like instead of letting players fall to us, let's go out and get those guys, right? Because
I agree.
Alex Leatherwood was a terrible pick, right? At least right now, specifically because we moved him to right guard. Or if he's an offensive tackle and he develops, great. It's a perfectly fine pick. But right now, he's a bust at right tackle, and he's moved into the inside. And, people oftentimes point out Colton Miller and say, oh, well, he sucked his rookie year too.
Colton Miller wasn't this bad, though.
But Colton Miller was not this bad, right? It's way different.
But was some of it the guys that played next to him? I mean, I think KO
potentially,
was still there. Rodney was there, And
Gabe at right guard, and then I think you had Donald Penn.
He started at right tackle.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that, right? Because that definitely makes a difference. I think it would have been different if we had Richie in that left guard, if we had Denzel Goodine in that right guard. I absolutely think it would have been different. But we do need to also see that development happen in year 2. Doesn't matter who's next to him, he has to develop. And he has to be able to move back to right tackle. Because with the 17th overall pick, if you're taking a right guard,
100% agree.
We could have taken Elijah Vera Tucker. I believe he was still on the board. And I think the Jets took him. He's a really good guard now for them. He's their future guard, right? Or maybe he was picked before.
I think he got picked a couple picks before. I think that's who you wanted maybe too. You had him mocked. I'm not sure, but there was some people who had him mocked to the Raiders.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to all you guys for the super chats. I really appreciate it. I see a lot of you guys' comments coming in. Mira Dolman, and I apologize if I say your name wrong, said, where the hell is Incognito? Let's play all the young guys so what we know, what we have, and what we need to draft. Absolutely. And I think that's kind of what the Raiders are doing, right? You look at Rich Incognito's likely done for the year, right? And maybe there's a chance he could have potentially came back and the Raiders decided, let's just watch John Simpson play. I will say this, John Simpson's not the future guard of the Raiders. He's missing things that you should not be missing. He's really good against in run blocking, but he misses stunts, he misses delayed blitzes, and teams are doing it to him, right? They know that this guy can't pick these things up, and they're doing it over and over and over again.
I got a quick question for you right now. So, Leatherwood's playing right guard. Who's the better guard right now between them?
Between Leatherwood and John Simpson?
Yeah.
Well, based off the last 2 weeks, I think Leatherwood is the better guard. Based off just the last 2 weeks.
What about prior to that? Was Leatherwood not?
Leatherwood was struggling in the past.
Now he's starting.
He's starting to play a little bit better. Absolutely. Okay. He's picking up his blocks. He's seeing his cues. He's reading. He's reacting. He's diagnosing things correctly. Leatherwood's definitely stepped up at right guard. I think the Raiders. But the thing is right guard's one thing, but we need him to play right tackle. Right? It's different 100%. To say he's going to be a right guard. But we have been allowing the younger guys play. John Simpson, Leatherwood, James, right? We've allowed those young guys to play. Even the outright receiver, right? Brian Edwards playing a little bit more. Although I want to see Brian Edwards play
Edwards should play.
Edwards should play. I was looking at some advanced statistics last night, and Edwards is 7th in yards after the catch per reception, which means you get him the ball and he's going to make something happen. And now I would like to see him play a little bit more. If he gets the targets, he's on pace to match Deebo Samuel, right? Right now, he has the same statistics as Deebo Samuel if he had the targets. He has about half the targets, half the yards. So I would like to see.
Deebo is a beast right now, man.
Yeah, and he is. He's a really good wide receiver. But I would like to see Edwards play a little bit more. And then on the defense side of the ball, we let Divine Diablo play a lot this past weekend. He looked good, man. Same with Malcolm Kuntz. I will have those film breakdowns hopefully tomorrow and Saturday. I'll probably do one for each of those guys. They look promising, man. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think this draft looks so much more promising than some of the past drafts. The 2019 draft, and I believe I talked about this with either Raid the Tape or Raider Honcho on one of their channels before the season started. It may have been both of you guys. But I said I think the 2019 draft class is better than the 2014 draft class. And that may be true, right? Especially if you look at the undrafted free agents that we picked up, right? Andre James was an undrafted free agent. Alec Ingold, undrafted free agent. There's a chance that draft class was our best draft class, right? I know in 2014 we got Mack and Derek Carr, obviously. among some other guys. But in 2019, we also got Renfro, we got Maxx, and some other
Foster,
guys.
Moreau.
Yeah, so like, it's arguable which draft was better. But I think this 21 draft, minus the first round pick, you look at Merrick, Hobbs, Diablo looked really good. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, Diablo looked very good. And then Malcolm Kuntz, like, he was bendy. He was able to hit the corner. He was able to dip his shoulder and stay up, not fall. He looked really good as well.
Why do you think Diablo didn't play earlier as much? You think he was still kind of dealing with his injury, so
he could have
him in with special teams? And
I think so. I think maybe he was dealing with the injury a little bit, potentially learning the system. I also think maybe a guy like KJ Wright wasn't playing as well. Denzel Perryman kind of got hurt this past game. So we'll see, but I do want to see more of Divine Diablo.
What did you see from him? Like, was he able to beat his blockers and like get off blocks?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing that I saw from Diablo that I really, really liked was he was able to get off blocks. Mm-hmm. And, he's a safety in college, linebacker in the NFL. You typically don't
speed translate.
Absolutely.
From like being a safety to
absolutely. I was watching Jamin Davis from Washington. Jamin Davis was number 52. They took him in the first round. Mm-hmm. Jamin Davis was my number 2 linebacker after Michael Parsons, right? I had him ahead of Jock, right, which was a lot of people's number 2 linebackers. And Jamin Davis looked fast. In fact, there was a screenplay that was thrown to Peyton Barber, and he chased it down. He was lined up as the defensive end over Colt Miller, and he chased it down backside. And he tackled him for a yard, right? Mm-hmm. We need that type of playmaker. Denzel Perryman's a good football player, but Denzel Perryman isn't doing anything in coverage. He's not chasing plays. He may shoot a gap, but he's not going to chase a play sideline to sideline. And Diablo might be that guy. Obviously, we'll find out, right? We'll find out how things pan out. But this draft is definitely promising. Before we get into that super chat, shout out to my man Pavin. He said GM. Not sure exactly what you're referring to. Maybe there's a past comment, but shout out to you, man.
Good morning.
Good morning. That probably is what that means. So shout out to you, man. Representing Yuba City. We're out here in Yuba City as well, man. So shout out to you. Cam said, I don't think you start Mariota to save the season, but you start him to understand where you're at this offseason. Possible bridge quarterback for the draft. And this is the biggest thing for me with Marcus Mariota. I don't know if Marcus Mariota is the Raiders' future, right? Chances are he's probably not. But if Marcus Mariota comes into the game, and let's say the Raiders offense, let's say it's not the receivers that are apparently not getting separation, right? Let's say the receivers are able to run good routes and Mariota delivers them the ball 25 yards downfield, right? Then at least we know it was not the receivers. It wasn't the offensive line. What if our running game gets going, right? At least we know.
Well, the running game will open up just with the option.
Absolutely. This is a good point. But at least with Mariota, that, could potentially let us know where we're at, right? If Mariota comes in and he sucks and he struggles, then we know, okay, it's not Derek Carr. The receivers actually are an issue. Although I disagree with that, at least then we would know it's the wide receivers that are the issue.
Right.
So again, I think that's a good point. Thank you for the super chat.
But also another thing, Mariota is not a pure better thrower of the ball than Derek Carr. What he will do is he'll be able to extend plays more, and when the receivers are just kind of like a scramble drill, everyone's running around trying to get open. Yeah, in those situations, Mariota can get them the ball downfield better. But out of pure pocket standpoints, Mariota's not the pocket quarterback that Derek Carr.
Absolutely, but I also think being a pocket quarterback is one thing, right? But being able to slip and step up in the pocket, being able to feel the pressure and stepping right, stepping left, Derek Carr can't do that. He struggles with doing that. He feels pressure and he checks it down as quickly as possible.
The games we win, he does a lot better.
He does, absolutely. Yeah. That is a fact, right? You look at the Dallas game and he was running around doing things. But the games we lose, Washington, for example, or the weeks before that, he stands there and he feels pressure. He checks it down.
Yeah, no
right.
Doubt.
And Derek Carr is definitely a better thrower of the football, but Lamar Jackson might be the worst thrower of the football among 32 teams, and he's still finding ways to win, right? And I get they have right now they have I think like the 10th best defense. I get he has a defense, but the Raiders have basically better everything than the Ravens. The only thing the Ravens have better on the offense side of the ball is the quarterback. The quarterback's the only difference because the Raiders have the better offensive line. They have the better running backs.
You think
they have the better receivers? I think so. The Ravens had to build a brand new offensive line. They brought
we did too pieces. In most parts too. Though.
Absolutely, but I think our offensive line's clicking now. I saw a stat that said our offensive line, I think it was Pro Football Reference's offensive line ranking, that the Raiders are the ninth best offensive line. Pro Football Focus efficiency, their pass blocking efficiency had the Raiders, I think, in the top 18 or 19, which isn't great, but that's about average, right? Either way, I want to see what the real issue is with the Raiders. I want to see Marcus play, and we'll know real quickly if Marcus is the answer, if he's not, if Derek Carr is the answer, if he's not, if it's the receivers, the running backs. We'll obviously find out.
Do you think, without a doubt? Okay, so I mean, obviously you're a big advocate for Marcus, but do you think we're going to see him this year, regardless, or if it's the last 1 or 2 games?
I think we will. I think we will, especially the way Derek Carr is playing right now. Typically Derek Carr, last year Derek Carr had a really good season most of the year. Right? He may have had 1 or 2 games where he wasn't able to do it, and that was against good teams, right? You look at the Tampa Bay game, the Patriots game. We were close, but then we just weren't able to get past him, right? But I do think that the Raiders, they have to do it. Now, obviously, I understand why maybe Mark Davis might say, hey, Rich, you're not going to be the head coach next year, so I don't want you to make that change. Right, so I could definitely see that. And I don't know if Derek would necessarily be benched.
Do you think Rich is the one who makes that change? I feel like it would come from Mayock and maybe even Mark Davis would have some say on it. And,
yes,
absolutely.
I don't think it would not be Rich Bisaccia making decisions. From what I've heard right now, Rich Bisaccia is the head coach. He coordinates the games. But Rich Bisaccia is not making the decisions, specifically, for example, with the offensive lineman, right? We know that Brandon Parker is struggling, but the Raiders aren't making that switch because that's Tom Cable's guy.
Exactly.
So from what I've heard, some of the other coaches have already talked to certain players and said, hey, we think, we want you to step in and we want you to fill in. And Tom Cable's went against it, saying Brandon Parker is the guy. He does, the technique, the things that I want to see. He does it the best. Obviously, you look at some of the guys we picked up, DJ Fluker as an example, Jermaine Illuminor, a couple other guys that we brought in. Those guys were coached somewhere else. So they already have their own techniques and their own things that they kind of want to do. And I feel like that's why Tom Cable rolls with a guy like John Simpson, who struggled, Brandon Parker, who struggled, because those guys know his technique. They know how he wants things done, which also leads me to believe that I think Tom Cable needs to be gone after this year. I think
our whole offensive side is going to be gone because we don't really have a guy who's in charge. I could see Gus Bradley. I think Gus Bradley's safer than the offensive side.
Absolutely. What I would like to see from our team, and Kuljit Jones says Dabo Swinney as the next head coach. You know what? I would love that. I don't know if he does do that. I feel like I understand he was at the Raiders game this past week.
What is he? Do you know what position he coaches?
I'm not 100% sure.
I feel like, I know he was on Nick Saban's staff back in the days. I'm not sure if I feel like he might be a defensive side of the ball coach, though. So, I'm not 100% positive.
So in the past, he was an offensive guy. Okay. He was wide receivers, tight ends. So he's a receivers coach in the past. So he's an offensive guy. I don't know if he calls plays. I'm going to assume he may.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's good. It'd be a good fit, right? Because I think what the Raiders need is they need a leader, an offensive minded leader, right? They need an offensive coach
and a big name like that,
and,
like John Gruden,
and a big name. Absolutely.
I don't think he leaves Clemson. That's a sweet gig he got going on there.
That's the thing, right? He has all his guys for the last.
It's really the second best gig after Nick Saban. Nick Saban's not leaving. I doubt this guy leaves.
Absolutely. Now Edward says, where would we be if we had CeeDee Lamb and Patrick Queen? I wasn't big on Patrick Queen, to be honest with you guys. I would have preferred Kenneth Murray Jr. over Patrick Queen.
Okay, let's just say Diggs from the Cowboys. And we reached on Arnett, took him in the first.
Well, that was the year after. But yeah, you're right.
Are you sure it was the year after?
Diggs and Arnett were taken the year. Actually,
no,
you're right. That was
that year. Yeah, they're both year 2 guys. So, we reached on Arnett, who a lot of people had him mocked in the second round. I'm not sure what the mockings were, but I'm pretty sure Diggs and Arnett were right around the same spot in the second round. Yep. So and then another thing, Alabama guy. We always draft Alabama guys, so that would have been the perfect time to get that Alabama guy.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a really good point. Yeah, Lamb, Queen, Diggs, Matt Murray, we're in a better spot because right now we have Gus Bradley. In my opinion, Gus Bradley's a good coach. He would be able to coach a guy up like Queen or Murray. He would know how to coach these guys, right?
No doubt. Get the best from them.
Yep. Which is unfortunate. Now, was Gus Bradley there when the Chargers took Kenneth Murray? Was he
just not there last year?
I think so. I think he was there. So, again, that's the type of player that I think shifts, the Raiders and kind of what they can do. I wanted CeeDee Lamb. Everybody knows I was a CeeDee Lamb guy. I think CeeDee Lamb is game changer. Now, obviously, Henry Ruggs, although he did step up a little bit the past couple of weeks, CeeDee Lamb is still the better player, right? There's no question about it. They're similar, but CeeDee Lamb.
If Ruggs was still playing, I can kind of justify it still. Like, hey, this guy, he's able to his more than his production is what he does for the team, which is clearing it, everything. I mean, we talked about this earlier. So, I mean, I've been able to justify it, but just the situation that he's in now, I mean, just.
Yeah, absolutely. Old Man's Raider Nation says, Perryman is another Whitehead. That is a fact. They're very similar players. The only difference is we have a better defensive coach at this point. Raider Wolf said Carr over Mariota. It's very split right now among Raider Nation. Some want Carr, some want Mariota. I will say I think it's about 60% of people are still behind Derek Carr. But it's crazy because in at the end of 2018, going into 2019, or about the 2019 year, I made a video saying that Derek Carr misses a lot of his wide receivers. And
I think you're the first one to do that too.
Yeah,
you got a lot of heat for it.
And I got a lot of heat for it. Like I lost at least 1,000 subscribers.
You got a lot of heat just in our group chat, our family group chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was in I think it was after the 2019 season that I said that. And 2019 was the year that I made my mind up that Derek Carr is, he gets happy feet. He can't feel pressure. He has terrible pocket awareness. That was the year that I've realized that this is what he is. Now in 2020, he had a great year, right? But in this year, it's the same thing. He's taking that step backwards.
I mean, in the beginning of the year, I felt like he was playing as good as he had since 2016, and then ever since John Gruden's situation happened.
Well, you can even look at the Bears and Chargers game, right? We had John Gruden for both of those games.
The Bears game was just already a weird game. We already had the distraction of the emails, one email getting leaked, and then the Chargers game. I mean, the first half was it was terrible, but the second half we almost, we scored 14 points and then went down and almost could have had 21 in a row, but we missed the kick too. So I mean. We started getting going a little bit, but that Bears game, no doubt. That Bears game was similar to like the last 4 of the last 5 games. Really similar to that.
Yeah. Old Man's Raider Nation. Mariota is a good backup, and that is it. 32 teams know this, so why can't Raiders fans acknowledge this? Again, we're going to get past the Derek Carr talk, but, I totally understand what you're saying, that 32 teams know this, but I also feel like that's just kind of an opinion, right? Derek Carr, a lot of people saying, he can go to 7-8 other teams. So many teams would trade for him. But you also think, is that really true, right? I know us Raider fans love our quarterback, and we're going to defend him and say he's, this hot commodity. But how many teams really need a quarterback? And why would you go out and get Derek Carr as opposed to maybe someone else you may be able to target, right?
So you're not in the mindset of we can get a first-round draft pick for Derek Carr?
I don't think so.
I don't think how do you compare like Matthew Stafford on the Lions to Derek Carr?
I think the Rams overpaid for Stafford. I don't think he's worth. I think they gave up 2 first-round picks.
And I mean, some of it was Goff's contract.
And that's the thing, is they had to get rid of Goff's contract to make it work. And obviously the Rams are in win mode now, right? Rams aren't looking to win in 3 years. They're looking to win now. This year, next year, that's their window of opportunity. I really believe that they overpaid, and they've been doing this. They've overpaid for a bunch of players, right? They'll trade for guys and they'll bring guys in. Do you think someone else wanted Matthew Stafford and were willing to give up 2 first-round picks? I doubt it, right? And again, I know some people will say, Derek Carr is a quarterback. It's the most important position. But what has Derek Carr shown us, right? He's good at times. He's really good at times, but he's also very inconsistent. And as a team, do you want an inconsistent quarterback, right? And it's one thing if Derek Carr is putting up 30 points and you're losing games because your defense can't get stops. But our defense is holding teams to less than 20 points multiple times this year, and we scored 12 or 13 points.
No doubt. And you know what's crazy is we always said, hey, give Derek Carr, give DC a defense that can hold people to this or that, and watch what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we did this year. Well, you know what we did? Shout out to you, Aaron Paul. I appreciate the $5 super chat. Thank you. It's because people did say that if Derek Carr had a defense, that's all he needs. We're going to be better, right? And I remember saying this before the season started, that this year we're going to have less offensive help for Derek Carr, but we'll have a better defense. Let's see if that less offensive help is enough for Derek Carr. Can he actually get it done with less offensive help. And I think it's proven that he cannot.
I mean, I think if if John Gruden and Ruggs are still there, to be fair, I think we could have won a lot of these games.
And we don't know that for sure, right? We don't 100% know that.
So I think I don't know how all Raider Nation feels. I feel like John Gruden is an elite offensive coordinator. Doesn't mean he's an elite at drafting or a head coach, all this, but offensive wise, I think he's one of the top 5-6 guys in the league. And then you lose something like that, and you go to somebody like Greg Olsen, who's, I don't know, what is he? He's suspect at best. So, it's gonna make a difference on your team.
Absolutely, and I do agree with that. 100% agree with that. I believe the actual flow of things was before the Bears game. John Gruden and Mark Davis were made aware of the email. Mm-hmm. After the Bears game was when the first email leaked before the Chargers game, and then after the Chargers game, the rest of the emails leaked.
No.
I believe that's how it went.
Oh, so we played the Chargers, and then
I'm sorry. So before the Chargers game, that's when John Gruden and Mark Davis
they were aware of the emails.
They were told.
Okay, and then one email leaked on Friday before the Bears game,
and then after the Bears game
on Monday, all of them.
Yeah, that was how it went. Which you could say that maybe John Gruden was distracted, right? And maybe they filled Derek Carr in, maybe they filled a receiver or a running, but they filled some people in, and maybe it kind of hindered the Raiders, or at least John Gruden at the minimum was distracted. You can make that argument, and I definitely see how you can make that argument.
I mean, I think John knew about the rest of the emails too, and they weren't leaked. So,
Absolutely,
maybe he, in the back of his mind, knew, hey, they're going to leak these soon, and I'm going to be fired regardless, one way or another, as soon as all these get leaked.
Absolutely.
He wasn't going to survive that.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked a lot about Derek Carr and kind of, Mariota potentially coming in. How do the Raiders move forward? Just with the rest of this season and then going into next year, how do we rebuild? Do we need to cut our bad contracts? Do we need to retool? How do the Raiders, what do we do?
It's interesting because, if we keep Mayock, Mayock's been here since 2019. So I would think some of the guys from 2019 were his guys as well.
Well, on that, what people say is Nate Hobbs is a Mayock pick and Cleveland Farrell's a John Gruden pick. All right, so all the bad picks they say are John Gruden, and all the good.
We wouldn't know that,
and we wouldn't. Absolutely.
That's pretty Homer if you ask me. Just blame all the bad picks on John now. So.
Yeah, but you make a good point, right? Mike Mayock had some decision on some of the bad picks, some of the good picks. So what do you think? You think we roll forward with Mike Mayock? Do we fire him and bring in a whole new?
It's interesting. I don't know. I think Mayock might be safe for another year or so, and then it's weird though, because if we do keep Mayock and we bring in a new coach, and then we're just to fire Mayock 2 years down the road, what's that mean for that coach? Is that coach a lame duck coach too at that point? Then he's going to be here for 2 years.
But that would imply if we get
unless it's a big name coach let's just say Dabo Swinney or something who Mayock at that point can be like the Reggie McKenzie to John Gruden.
So if we get a new coach next year, right? Our expectations that he has 3 years to turn it around. Because shouldn't expectations be that next year is the year he needs to have it turned around?
Based on that 2019 draft, yes.
Absolutely, right?
So, but it depends who the coach is. Or do you think we bring a defensive defensive coach or an offensive coach? And which one would you be in favor of?
I would prefer an offensive coach.
Same.
I don't know. The reason why I'm hesitant with that is you look at some of the good coaches out there. Bill Belichick comes to mind, and
But see, Belichick's one of those when NFL is just different. So now he has everything set. He's had time to establish that system. And then Josh McDaniels. He's had Josh McDaniel for 10 years.
Well, another thing though is the last time we had success was with a defense coach, with Jack Del Rio, right? And I almost feel like, especially if we roll forward with Derek Carr, we're always saying our defense isn't good enough. If we bring in an offensive-minded coach, and I'm the type, in my opinion, the Raiders, how they move forward is you get rid of Gus, you get rid of everybody. Brand new coaching staff, brand new everything.
See, that sucks because I kind of like Gus. I thought that the defenses had taken a step up with him, and so
I don't like Gus Bradley's scheme to be honest. I feel like saying, oh, let's play cover 3 on every play, or that cover 3 shell on every play, it just doesn't work well. And we play way too soft at times. We play way too bend but don't break. And I feel like that is not the right way forward because, sure, it may work against the average quarterbacks, right? You play a Hurts of the Eagles, it may work. You play Ben Roethlisberger when he's 48 years old, that may work. But when you're playing Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes, top 5-6 quarterbacks, that's not going to work. Those guys are going to pick it apart, right? Because they're accurate passers. And I almost feel like with Gus Bradley's scheme, it just doesn't work because you know where the holes are. And it's so reliant on and again, I know
the
we're
pass
improved.
rush too.
It's so reliant on the pass rush. And the thing is this pass rush is not going to last for the next 10 years. We have the window of opportunity for maybe the next 2 to 3 years that this pass rush is going to be consistent, right? Unless we add another piece to the pass rush, which would it be like a defensive tackle?
I mean, you always just draft well. You can always just, I mean, like the Ravens, who do you really know? Like they're always replacing guys every year in and out, and they stay consistent because they drafted well.
Yeah. So Raid the Tape says Gus puts our players in position to make plays. That's just miss the backfield tackles and interceptions or cost penalties on third down. And that may be true, right? It absolutely may be true. But what did we do against the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs put up 41 points. And I almost feel like
the game was close for most, like midway to the third quarter until we had that drop interception by Casey Hayward, I believe.
I think we had 2 dropped interceptions. Yeah. That was one of them. But I just don't know if Gus Bradley's scheme is going to work. I know Ray the Tape says that he puts guys in position, but we're what? Like bottom 2 or 3 in interceptions at the moment. I just don't know, right? I feel like we need to be a little bit more aggressive. Like how many times do we put 2 guys into the linebackers into the A gap? We play press man to coverage and we blitz a quarterback.
Hardly blitz.
And that's the thing, right? Is we're just not optimistic. You know, we're not opportunistic about getting those interceptions. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary to get those interceptions. Quarterbacks in the NFL aren't going to just throw a guy that's playing cover 3 the football when he's able to sit back and make those reads. He's not going to just throw an interception to a guy, right? Quarterbacks don't do that. Quarterbacks only do that when they're under pressure, they're under duress, when guys are about to hit them. I just don't know with Gus. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to keeping Gus, right? I'd be fine with keeping Gus. But I just don't know if going forward it makes sense to do that. You look at some top tier defenses scheme wise, right? The Miami Dolphins have Brian Flores, Bill Belichick obviously is Bill Belichick who runs Patriots defense. Even you look at a team like Alabama, and these guys come out in 3-4 one play, and they'll switch it to a 4-3 the next play, and then they'll go into a 3. They'll put 3 defensive linemen in. They'll put 3 linebackers in the next play. They'll put a safety in as a middle linebacker. They do 100 different things, and it works. Those are the types of schemes that work. The Raiders come out in a cover 3 shell.
We're also year 1 in our defensive scheme, to be fair. Also,
now, do you think Gus Bradley will do more things, or do you think he will only stick to the cover 3
he's
shell?
always been a cover 3 guy, though, too. So
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, no, I agree.
You want him out?
I think the way forward would be to bring in a brand new coaching system. Ray the Tape says Hobbs literally caught an INT that our other players dropped.
You know what's crazy about that, Ray, is I thought they're going to almost fight each other for the ball and just no one was going to catch it. I was like, dude, you guys got to lay off the ball. Let one guy get it, because they almost seemed like 3 guys attacked the ball at the same time. And I was like, dude, they're going to screw this up right now. But luckily, I mean, we were able to hold on to it.
Yeah, it would have been good if Amir was able to intercept his pass. Not only would we have won the game, but both of our rookies would have interceptions. Yeah. In my opinion, I think what the Raiders should do is we get a defensive head coach, because if you get a defensive head coach, that means your offensive coordinator will be changed every 2, 3, 4 years, depending on when he gets his next gig, right?
But that's, I mean, considering he's good and teams want to hire him.
Of course, right? And I wouldn't want a terrible offensive coordinator and we continue to suck, because then we'd have to fire him and get a new one anyways. But if there is a good offensive coach, if you're a defensive-minded coach, the defense should be able to run the defense. And if he's having success, he's our coach for the next 40 years, right? If he's having success. In the offense, we should be able to turn it over. In my opinion, I think if you have a good defense, you can always build a good offense, right? And I feel like if you have a schemed-up defense that's good, I feel like that would be the way to win, right? Especially with the Raiders team that we've lost so much. And for the last 20 years, how many top defenses have we had? Like, I know the one year when we had like Nam Diasmo and all these other guys, we were good, I think, 1 year where we had like a top tier defense.
Offense was bad.
But our offense was bad. Absolutely. I just find it interesting with the whole coaching staff and how we move forward. But besides the coaching staff, what do we do in the draft? I believe we have 1 first round, 1 second. Maybe we have 2/3. What do we do going forward through the draft? Or do you think we should trade our picks?
That's interesting. You want to just trade them for like proven vets, or not even vets, but just guys within the first 4 or 5 years like the Fitzmikas and the whatever Adams and like Ramses, those time. I mean, at least that way, you're getting a proven player,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, but the thing is, you probably have to give up 2 firsts for those guys.
Yeah. Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be a Steeler the rest of his career, right? They're well-run organization. They get players that are difference makers, and they're going to keep those guys, right? Minkah Fitzpatrick is a difference maker. Interceptions, he's always making the plays at the right time. For the Raiders, are we even in like Maxx Crosby, for example? Like, we have to make that decision on Maxx Crosby. Is Maxx Crosby good enough to say we need to give him $25 million a year?
So, I mean, okay, do you think he's better than Yannick? And if so, how much better is he? Because Yannick's on a sweet deal. He's getting like 11 to 12 million right now.
Yeah.
That's a bargain, if you ask me.
I don't know if Maxx Crosby's better than Yannick. At least not right now. I really don't. I think.
So then, I mean, are we going to pay him that much more? Like even more than double what Yannick's getting?
And that's the thing. That's the decision that we'll have to make.
I mean, I know the market is going to indicate that, especially like, I mean, he's obviously not going to get what Watt got, but it'll be something in the ballpark, 20 plus. So.
And cap goes up, right? Maxx Crosby is going to be eligible this year for the first time. If we extend him now, maybe we get some cheaper contracts. It'll be less of a cap hit going forward. But some people are saying, Read the Tape says, he says, Crosby needs to have more sacks than penalties, which I think at this point, Maxx Crosby has 5 or 6 sacks this year, and I believe he has more penalties.
And didn't he have 3 week 1, or was it 2
sacks?
Yeah.
I think he may have had 2. I mean, he had a bunch in the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't think he's had a sack in the last.
He gets held a lot, man. And he does get pressure. He hits the quarterback a lot, which, I mean, I guess you could say is a curse as well. But at the same time, it is kind of making the quarterback think.
Yeah.
And just nick the quarterback up just a little bit. Whereas,
let me ask all of you guys and you this question. PFF is pumping the shit at Maxx Crosby. They're saying he's the top 2 or 3 pass rusher in the entire league. I watch every single game. I watch the tape. I don't see that. I don't see him having that impact.
He gets quarterback pressures. He is making the quarterback step up and think or see him and look at him or just all that. But yeah, the sack production has not been there for how much pressure he's been able to get.
Yeah, absolutely. Arch, thank you for the super chat. You said, will DC be our quarterback next year? I think a lot of that's going to also depend on the coach you bring in, right? Because that coach is going to get that decision. Is DC?
I think he is, at least for next year. I think he is,
and because he is under contract as well.
Unless, I mean, even if you draft a rookie quarterback, I think he's still there. At least one
absolutely. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that.
Unless we get a veteran like Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson or even Russell Wilson, something like that. I mean,
you Green says if you trade Crosby, you could lose the locker room. I don't know. And then Hoodie says Max is way better than Yannick.
I mean, I don't know. I want to say way. I think he is better than Yannick, but I mean, I think Crosby, he gets more constant pressure than Yannick does. I think that's one thing he is better than.
Let's do this, man. If you guys think Maxx Crosby's better, put in Max in the super chat. If you guys think Yannick is better, just put in Y, because you guys don't have to spell his entire name out. And let's see, man. Let's see. I want to know what you guys think. Like, do you guys think Yannick is better? Do you guys think Max is better? I see what some of you guys are saying. Rick Grimes said Maxx Crosby is just a better version of Arden Key.
Oh man,
which is crazy because Arden Key's having a good year for the Niners, and they're putting him in at defensive tackle. They're playing him at that 3 tech, and he looks a little bit bigger as well. I think Maxx Crosby is obviously better than Arden Key, but Arden Key is having a good year with the Niners. It's crazy because he wanted to be like Aldon Smith, that he mentioned that a couple years back, and now he's with the Niners, and he's having an impact. But I see a lot of what you guys are saying. A lot of you guys are saying it's Maxx Crosby. A couple of you guys said why for Yannick. Some people are also saying Crosby gets chipped every play. I'm not saying Yannick Ngakoue is 100% better than Maxx Crosby. because Yannick also has been in the league for, I believe, 6 or 7 years, and Crosby's in year 3, right? Development is a true thing, right? I know that to be a fact, which also means that Maxx Crosby is going to get better as he gets older, right? He's not going to get worse. He's not going to, come down. He's only going to get better. And I don't think Crosby's reached his full potential. Maxx Crosby not only stopped drinking alcohol after year 2, but he got sober and he started working out. So this year was actually the first year that he had a full offseason of working out. He's been sober. He's had his diet and all that good stuff. So I think going into next year, we're going to see the true Maxx Crosby next year. But I just don't know how much you pay him. And again, I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. I think it would be smart to keep him on the roster. But at that point, like if PFF's saying he's a top 2 or 3 defensive end, and if Max actually believes he is, he may want close to almost $30 million in 2 years, right? Once his contract expires. Or actually, his contract expires after year 4 because he's a rookie. He's not a first round pick. So I don't know. A lot of people are saying this is Khalil Mack all over.
No doubt, man. I mean, you think we get to? I don't want to talk about it. Actually, I don't want to talk about trading Max. Resign him.
I think so too. I think you re-sign him, and I hope that maybe after this year we can re-sign him. He's finally going to be eligible.
That's a great comment right there.
To hope that to hope that we get him for 19 to 22 million a year.
So I mean I don't think that's the case. I think if we had done that maybe in the beginning of the year, somewhat
he wasn't eligible, so we couldn't have extended him. He will only be eligible after year 3.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, he's played to a certain level already this year to a point where I think, he's going to ask for 22 to 25, maybe. Yeah. Maybe even more than that. So, I mean.
No, so that would be great if we can get him for 19 to 22. Raid the Tape makes a good point. He says Khalil Mack actually closed games. No defender on this team closes games for
100%
us.
agree with you, man. In 2016 alone, he closed like 3 or 4 games for us.
Absolutely. And we don't have that right now, right? But
I mean, Max is not Khalil Mack. Max is a damn good player, but he's not Khalil. Khalil was elite. Like he was elite. He was the second best pass rusher in the league when he was with us.
Absolutely. So we'll see how we build forward, right? But just to kind of continue on that topic, we talked a little bit about the coach. Maxx Crosby, we're going to have to make that decision on him. Derek Carr will have to make that decision on him. But let's just say we do say, hey, we're going to roll forward with Derek Carr. Derek Carr's not going to sign for $20 million. Right, he's going to want $40 million.
I don't know about 40. So I mean, he's talked about. I mean, well, let's see if he does. He's said that, hey, it's not about the money. I have more than enough money to survive a lifetime now. So, I mean, what if he wants 31 to 32 million? Like, is that something that you would want at that point or no?
I still feel like obviously the cap goes up, right? At that point, that may be like Jimmy Garoppolo's getting 29 million this year, right? And at this point, 29 million. Or let's say 31 million next year, that's going to be like the 17th highest paid quarterback. So I don't know. And maybe Derek Carr does take that, or maybe the cap space is created for that is what it shows, right? Because you can do that, right? You can pay Derek Carr 45 million in cash basically for this year, and you can accrue that where it only hits for 30 million this year and the 15 million hits in the year after. Mm-hmm. And then when the year after comes, you do the same thing and you push it even further down. So that is something the Raiders could actually do with DC. But my point is let's say DC does get 30 million this year. Let's say Max gets 25. And then let's say 20, right?
All these guys are free agents though, man. The whole 2019.
Even Darren Waller though. Darren Waller's like at
even
20.
like Hunter Renfrow. Renfro's gonna get what? Like
minimum 12 million. Minimum. Absolutely minimum 12 million. We have so many guys that we need to re-sign. We're going to lose somebody
like
guys.
Foster Monroe. I mean, even him, 5 to 6.
I don't think Foster.
We probably don't re-sign him, but I mean, if we were to re-sign him, he would get 5 to 6.
I think Foster Monroe is going to go to another team that doesn't have a tight end and play well. Foster Monroe can go to what quarterbacks are out there?
Even Mullins. Got to re-sign Trayvon
Mullen. Yep. Trayvon Mullen. Trayvon Mullen will need to re-sign. Jonathan Abram will need to be re-signed. Raid the Tape says, I ain't paying Max more than 18. I'm sorry to tell you, man,
he's gone.
That
man.
he's definitely going to be gone.
Then, man.
And maybe someone can look into it. How many?
So real quick, man, I don't know if you're basing that on like contracts from 3 to 4 years ago. The cap, I think it's going to take a significant jump, right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, if you do it that way, it's not all that crazy to pay him, $23 to $24 million.
Yeah,
that $23 to $24 million almost is that new $17 to $18 million range from like 4 or 5 years ago.
Another good point to keep in mind is there's no state tax in Vegas, right? So in California, if you make 20 million, you may pay 20% of that, right? Or whatever, maybe 30%. Let's say you pay 30% of 20 million, right? You're looking at what, 6 million, I believe, or something like that. As opposed to in Vegas, you keep all of that, right? So that does make a little bit of difference. And I do think that is why maybe
cheaper cost of living as well.
Yeah,
the Bay Area.
And maybe that's why like someone like Yannick would sign a little bit less because he's basically keeping it, right?
And he also only signed a 2-year deal, so it's not, and he hadn't been having great production either the last like year and a half, and he had kind of bounced around team to team too. So
yeah. So let's say the Raiders do re-sign some guys, they get rid of some guys. I will say this: I think our offense line is fairly cheap, which is always good, right? You don't want to pay an offense line $50 million like we had last year, and they're average, right? If you're going to pay them the second highest amount of cap for your 5 starters, you want them to be a top 5 offensive line. We weren't that last year, which is good because this year.
I mean, Trent Brown was out too, man. I think if Trent Brown was like his 2019 form, we would have been a top 5 offensive line.
Absolutely. Well. Obviously, with that right tackle position, we were rotating guys in and out. But I think going forward, the offense line is going to be cheaper, which is good. We save a little bit of cap. But in the draft, who do we target in the first round? Like, what position, in your opinion, makes the most sense? What do the Raiders need?
I mean, it sucks to say this, but I mean, you almost have to say wide receiver right now, right? Like, I mean, it's like we just drafted one a year ago, so it's like we shouldn't have to address that position again.
Now,
we might have to.
Now, do you think it makes sense to get a wide receiver through the draft or go target a guy like Davante Adams, Michael Gallup?
Davante Adams is not going to hit the free agent market. They're gonna franchise him, and then we're gonna have to give up a shitload for him. So I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. Like I'm down with that as well. But is Davante coming here if Derek's not here? I think the number one reason Davante comes here is because of Derek.
So let's talk about that a little bit. There's rumors out there, okay? And I don't ever talk about this because I know it's sensitive for a lot of people. There are people out there that I talk to that have been told by players that they don't want to play with Derek Carr. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Amari Cooper decided not to stay with the Raiders, right? And I know some people say John Gruden didn't want him.
I think John Gruden want more of a fiery receiver,
which is understandable. But I want to just say this first. Okay. People have said Amari Cooper did not want to play for Derek Carr. Antonio Brown came to the Raiders and within a month decided he no longer wanted to play with the Raiders. He even took a shot at Derek Carr when Derek Carr overthrew him on a deep route in practice. He posted it, and he posted something about that play. Nelson Aguilar came to the Raiders, played here for a year, and decided not to stay here. Decided he's going to go.
I mean, to be fair, we didn't re-sign him. We didn't want to pay him the $12 million.
Which that's what everybody says, right? But my point is
that's not fair. If Nelson Aguilar felt like that because he had a career year with Derek Carr, he got paid because of Derek Carr. If it wasn't for John Gruden, the Raiders, and Derek Carr, Nelson Aguilar wouldn't have all that guaranteed money that he got from the Patriots.
Which is fact.
And you could have made a point that this guy's basically a bust, and he may have not been in the league much longer if it wasn't for the 1 year. I mean, what's he doing right now?
Nelson Aguilar has, I believe, about 400 yards. So he's
on pace of his Eagles career basically.
Yeah,
back at that.
Well, so with the Raiders, his highest was about 800, or with the Raiders, he had about 850 yards. His best season with the Eagles, he had about 750. So it wasn't a big difference. But also with the Patriots, he also has a rookie quarterback, so his numbers will come down a little bit. They're a run for his team. But my point in saying what I'm saying about Derek Carr and what people have told me that other players have said about Derek Carr and the fact they don't necessarily want to play with him is that you're saying, will Davante Adams come to the Raiders if Derek Carr's not here, right? If Davante Adams gets paid a ton of money, and let's say the Raiders get Aaron Rodgers, right? Let's just say, I'm sure Davante Adams would say, yeah, I'm going to go play with Aaron Rodgers, right? at the same time, if you tell Devontae Adams, hey, Devontae, Patrick Mahomes wants you and we'll give you $20 million. And then the Raiders say, hey, Devontae, Derek Carr wants you and we're going to give you $20 million. What do you think he's going to choose? Right? He's going to take, and again, you know, that's not just a knock on Derek. I'm just saying, right?
I don't know. I mean, if him and Carr really are boys and they're really tight like that, who knows? Maybe he does pick Derek. But I mean, I do get what you're trying to say, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, I think the Raiders need to get some offensive playmakers. I don't know if drafting is the way to do it because, you know, a draft is like, we're going to have to wait 2 years, right? And again, not every receiver you
Not
have to
always,
wait 2 years.
not necessarily.
But a lot of them, most of them, right? Not everybody's going to be Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, right? You'll get a lot of Brandon Ayuk's and the guy from the Eagles, Jalen Reagor, even Ruggs his first year. Right? You're going to get a lot of those guys, right? That are going to take 1 or 2 years to develop. But I think the Raiders should not go with the wide receiver in the first round, right? If you left it up to me, and I pounded the table for Christian Barmore, right, with the 17th pick. I could not have said it enough. Christian Barmore needs to be taken with the 17th pick. And the Raiders made another mistake, right? But it's year in and year out they're making these same mistakes because Christian Barmore right now looks to be a star player for the Patriots. People are saying that next year he's going to be one of their top 2 or 3 players on that defense. Now that defense has some other good players as well. But Christian Barmore looks to be really good, and the Raiders missed out on him. Could you imagine if we had Christian Barmore, Maxx Crosby, and Yannick Ngakoue, you know, this year and then even next year, right? Like our defensive line would be completely different. Instead, we got Jonathan Hankins, right? And Hankins is not a pass rusher. I know we have Solomon Thomas,
Solomon's playing well.
He's all right, right? He's not as good as I think.
Compared to what we thought we were going to get from him, where we thought, hey, he might not even make the roster because they might not want to pay him that $5 million or whatever. So, I mean, to be fair, he's played well.
He's definitely played well, right? And I believe he was on a 1-year contract as well.
Do you think we re-sign him? Just a quick question.
I mean, I can see Solomon Thomas going somewhere and getting $9 million.
I did too, like 9-8 easily, yeah.
And I don't know if we have that cap, right? Well, you know what's crazy is we have all these players, like talented players, like, oh, this guy's going to get 20, 25, 15. We're like 6-6 right now. We still suck, right? So it's like we have so many pieces, so many assets, but we're still struggling to win. Raider Wolf says we need a right tackle and a center. Now, I agree we need a right tackle, but I totally disagree that we need a center. And I'm surprised that people still haven't gotten over the narrative that Andre James is not a good football player. It's crazy because when the season started, there was a viral clip of Andre James's foot getting stuck behind, I believe it was Jermaine Illuminor at right guard, and he fell in the goal line. His foot got stuck, and he got pancaked backwards. And people took that clip, and it wasn't clear with the clip that was posted. It was kind of edited in a way, right? It wasn't clear that his foot got caught, but that clip got like 90,000 views or something like that. They got like 100,000 views, and people were retweeting it, and I got tagged at least 100 times in that clip, right? So that's why I bring it up. But my point is people were willing to give up on Andre James after the first 3 weeks. But since week 3, he's been a top 6 center. I think he's 5th best center according to Pro Football Focus.
I mean, regardless of where he ranks, he's playing well. He's a solid starter. He'll be our center for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely. I totally agree with it.
I wouldn't make a case. I think it's a fact. He's our 2nd best offensive lineman as well, after Colton Miller.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely something you can see. He's definitely better than Parker and Simpson, and you can argue he's probably better than Leatherwood as well. That's a good point, man. You can argue that Andre James is the 2nd best center, which is kind of crazy to think that, right? That Andre James is the 2nd best center. U Green says to draft Harris from Alabama. I believe you're talking about the linebacker. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's the linebacker. I wouldn't be mad at taking a linebacker either. Like, I really would not be mad. I think the Raiders do need to get some difference makers on the defense side ball. And what I mean by that is, Devin White is a difference maker on the defense side ball. Like, he's not great on every play, but he will make that one play when you really need him to make. Devin White. Mike Parsons is a difference maker, right? These are difference makers on defense. And I know Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen haven't been difference makers necessarily, but they've been good players. And I think the Raiders need a difference maker, and I think it starts with that linebacker position. Corey Littleton is technically signed a 3-year contract, but we can get out after this year with no dead cap.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's gone.
So yeah, I think the Raiders are going to cut him to save that cap to spend it elsewhere, which means I think Divine Diablo replaces Corey Littleton going forward. I think it was very clear this past week that Diablo is a good football player. So I think Diablo replaces Littleton, but we still need a guy that's our long-term middle linebacker. Now, I know some people like Nicholas Morrow. I don't know how I feel about that. He obviously hasn't played, but coming into this,
Morrow's been here for a long time, man.
But
Jack Del Rio guy,
which is crazy to think. But to be clear, people have said that Nick Morrow was our best linebacker coming in. Denzel Perryman only got brought in, and we only traded for him because Morrow got knocked out. Right, he was knocked out early with a long-term injury. I think the Raiders need a linebacker, absolutely. At the same time, would it make sense for the Raiders to potentially get a corner, like in the first round?
Man, we've drafted so many secondary players, man, and we drafted 2 corners from Ohio. Imagine just getting a corner from Ohio State right now.
Yeah,
in the first.
I agree. Like Damon Arnett, Gary Conley, and it's crazy because there's some good corners that come out, and we just don't get the right ones. Read the tape says, I'd be mad if we went linebacker because we missed on so many, and now, sheesh, rather got defensive tackle. They're all on 1-year deals.
I agree. It's also one of the more important position too.
Yeah, absolutely. What's going on, Ralph? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to all of you guys, man. If you guys can hit that thumbs up button, I would really, really appreciate it. We'll go for a little bit longer. If the Raiders were to take a quarterback this year in the first round, like let's say we traded up the same way the Patriots did, would you be the way the Niners did? Would you be disappointed with that? Would you be disappointed if the Raiders?
It depends how it works out, right? If the quarterback, I mean, at first sight, yeah, it would be, especially if you give up 3 first-round draft picks like the Niners did. Yeah, it kind of would be like, man, we traded a lot for a quarterback. But then, I mean, he ends up being like the next Patrick Mahomes. How upset are you going to be?
Absolutely. At that point, it would not matter.
Yeah.
Right. In my opinion, I don't think this Raiders team is bad. I think the Raiders have a good roster. I think what's holding us back right now is a playmaker at quarterback. And I'm not knocking Derek for that, right? But we know Derek Carr isn't, he's not that guy that's going to run around and make those extra plays. And I say that because I don't think this offense is that bad. No, I do think this. I think the O-line has to get better, and I think they will going into next year. Right?
We got to get better at running the ball,
and I think they will as the offensive line comes together and clicks as they get a little bit older. I think they get better. Right? It's a natural thing that will happen. As they play a little bit longer. The receivers, I want to see Bryan Edwards more. I think there was a play that I showed yesterday in my film breakdown that Bryan Edwards was wide open, and Derek Carr didn't throw him the ball. There was a play against the Chiefs. Bryan Edwards was wide open for a touchdown, but Derek Carr got hit. Alex Sutherland missed his block, and Derek Carr got hit. And Derek still lobbed it. It just didn't get far enough. Mm-hmm. But I want to see Bryan Edwards play more. I almost feel like Bryan Edwards could be a top-tier wide receiver if he gets more opportunity. Remember, in the offseason, John Gruden said Bryan Edwards is the next Terrell Owens.
Called him T.O.
He called him T.O.
He looks like T.O. out there, so he said.
But the thing is we heard this about Darren Waller when Darren Waller broke out, right? John Gruden, and it was players as well saying this guy looks different. And people are saying the same thing about Bryan Edwards. It just hasn't clicked on the actual field, right? But Bryan Edwards is still a good football player. He was a first-round talent, right, in that loaded draft. Mm-hmm. He would have potentially been a first-round pick had he been able to stay healthy and be able to do everything that he needed to. But again, I feel like Bryan Edwards, if he gets the targets, can produce. And I feel like right now he's not getting the targets, not getting the playing time. And, I'm not blaming Derek, right? Because you can also blame, why is Zay Jones getting more snaps than Bryan Edwards? Is Edwards not able to block correctly? I know they're different. Zay Jones is supposed to be the Henry Ruggs, right? So I get that as well. And it's not Bryan Edwards. It's not Zay Jones that replaced Bryan Edwards. It's not Hunter Renfrow. It's Darren Waller. Darren Waller is no longer playing tight end. They're putting him out as a wide receiver. And they're taking Bryan Edwards down. They're putting Foster Moreau as that inline tight end. So again, when you think about it that way, Darren Waller is obviously better than Bryan Edwards. I just don't know if it makes sense to keep doing that. Like, you're basically saying you'd rather have Foster Moreau on the field as opposed to Bryan Edwards, right? And I don't really know how I feel about that necessarily. We got a couple of super chats here. Let's get to these really quickly. Roseville Winter said, give me your favorite coaching candidates. I personally don't know a lot of the coaches out there. Obviously, I know Dabble Sweeney was with the Raiders this past week. I would love to get him. I don't think that's
Jim Harbaugh.
That would be the best hire right there. I think Harbaugh.
So?
I think Harbaugh.
You think he's more of an NFL guy than a college guy as well?
Well, I mean, he's having success this year, right?
This year, yeah.
And in college is different. College, you need 4 or 5 years to get your own guys, right? Because when Harbaugh came in year one, he had at least the freshmen.
They played pretty well his first 2 years there.
But he had 4 years of players that he needed to get rid of in order to get his guys, right? Yeah. And they're having success. And let's be honest, a lot of Harbaugh guys are ending up in the NFL, right? It's not like Michigan's not producing NFL guys, and although they've always kind of produced NFL guys, but I think if the Raiders could get Harbaugh, I think you go out and you get him. You pay him whatever he wants. Give him that $100 million contract that you gave to John Gruden. Give that to Harbaugh, right? And I'm not saying 10 years, 100, but Harbaugh had how many years left? I think 5 years left, or 6.
John
Gruden. Yeah. So I think Harbaugh. I think he's a good coach. Another candidate I know some people have mentioned is the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. I kind of disagree with that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
He calls the plays, I think, right?
I don't know if he calls the plays. I always was under the impression that it was Andy Reid that calls the plays, but maybe he does call the plays. Either way, I don't think the Chiefs' play calling is all that great anyways. I know they have a great quarterback. The thing with Andy Reid is Andy Reid made it work with Alex Smith. He got them in the playoffs with Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes is a top-tier quarterback, so it's different if you're making the playoffs with him, right? Yeah. I think that's really Andy Reid's offense. It's really Andy Reid's team, which is different. Again, I don't know if I would take, I think Eric Bellamy is his name. Yeah. I don't know if he's the guy.
Do you think that, okay, so I don't know who we're going to hire, but do you think there's more of a chance we hire somebody kind of like McVay, who was really just unknown at the time,
absolutely,
which worked out great? Do you think there's somebody like that?
Yeah.
That we just don't know about right now? It's a potential candidate?
Absolutely. I think there are guys out there that are potential candidates like that.
You know what's funny is I thought that, what's his name? Joe Brady?
Mm-hmm.
Is that his name?
The offense coordinator.
From the Panthers. He got fired recently. So, I mean, obviously it's not a good look. But, I mean, I thought maybe he's the guy who could potentially be something like a McVay. He's young and
a lot of people like him. A lot of people like Kellen.
So,
he got fired. Yeah. A lot of people like Kellen Moore.
Yeah, but see, Kellen Moore, I'm not sure. I think he can call good plays. I think from an X and O guy, he'll be good. But how's he manage a team from a team standpoint? Is that something where, hey, you have to bring in a veteran defensive coordinator who can kind of, overshadow the whole operations? And
that's the thing, is I think we need to get a guy out there like a Sean McVay type. The Chargers got Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
I think he's a good coach.
Yeah. I think he's a defensive guy.
Yeah, and he's a defense guy. So that would have been a good hire. Obviously, we had Gruden. This year, I don't know which coaches are going to be there, right? Because sometimes it's about timing as well, right? Like you have to, in that year, just, like Sean McVay obviously went out and he got that position, but oftentimes.
And it's great. McVay, it's not like their offense with Washington was killer at that point.
Yeah.
They had him and Kyle Shanahan there. They had both of them there, and they had Jay Gruden. And it's like their offense was solid, but it wasn't like, we're just what we're seeing right now. It's like unreal. Like you don't see this anywhere else. It wasn't like that.
No.
So sometimes it's like, hey, you get your time to shine, and they can just show you really, hey, what they're made of, So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the super chat. Adrian said, "Do you think Carr doesn't trust his wide receivers or himself?" I don't know exactly what that means when you say, "Does Carr not trust his wide receivers?"
I think you got to throw a little bit of O-line in there too. He doesn't trust the O-line all that much either sometimes.
But see, the thing with that is if you're saying you don't trust your players. I almost feel like that's just an excuse to say if quarterback's struggling, just to say, he doesn't trust his guys. At what point will he trust his guys? Like, do we need to rebuild every offensive lineman, every wide receiver next year? Like, do we have to rebuild everything next year? Like, does he not trust any of his wide receivers? Like, I don't know. I almost feel like
I think he trusts Renfro and Waller definitely.
Well, so here's another thing, right? Some people say, Derek Carr, makes tight ends great, right? Or whatever. He makes certain players great. Jared Cook had a great year with the Raiders, and Darren Waller's had a great career with the Raiders.
Scheme, a lot of it is.
It's 100%
multiple tight ends.
It's 100% the scheme that John Gruden implements, right? Look at from the time John Gruden is no longer here. Look at Darren Waller's stats Guy gets targeted like 3 times a game, right? Or has like 3 catches a game. I almost feel like for the Raiders, I almost feel like Derek Carr is better by having top tier receivers versus top tier tight ends. And I feel like that's also why they shifted Waller away from tight end and they put him in as a wide receiver.
Do you think there's something true to he's better with the guys who play inside and in the slot versus the guys who play on the outside? And
I always felt he was better. Now I think the scheme is different, right? The scheme's 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, that type of thing. I almost think if you let Derek make his progressions and you give him good receivers, that he can hit those outside guys, right? I think he struggles more to like tight ends, inside, maybe not slot receivers necessarily, but like I feel like in the past he showed that like he could get his guys the ball, right? Now, obviously, that's not the way to win, right? In my opinion, I think being in shotgun and doing all that is not the way to win. Sure, there's a time for that, 2-minute drill, stuff like that. But you can't just go out there and throw it on every down, right? It didn't work with Ryan Fitzpatrick when he was with the Dolphins and they tried throwing it at every single play. It doesn't work. You have to run the ball. You have to be balanced. Again, I don't know. It's a good question. I appreciate the super chat. Cam said to re-sign Casey Hayward and that he would bring Deshaun Jackson back. I like both of those guys. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree with Hayward. Djax, I mean, maybe we replace him with somebody younger. I mean, he is going to be 35 next year, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, from a deep standpoint and what he could do to open the offense and help the other guys, kind of like a Ruggs, I agree.
So do you think we should go target a guy that's already out there?
What if somebody like a Brandon Cooks, we get him for like a 3rd-round draft pick? I mean, I know it's not a sexy name. Yeah, I know. I know it's not a sexy name or anything like that. But like, what if just what his specialty is, and that's a deep threat.
He's been a good wide receiver.
Yeah, and that's just enough to open up our offense.
Absolutely, I would not be opposed to that at all.
And I mean, you can make a case he's probably a better pure wide receiver than Henry Ruggs, at least at this point in year 2.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably true. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing both guys back. I think Hayward for sure. We need to bring him back. Deshaun Jackson, I'm not 100% sure with because I think he's already 35. I think his birthday just happened. I think he is 35 now, or maybe he turned 34. So don't quote me, but yeah, I think the Raiders have a lot of question marks. They have to do a lot. Casey said to draft D, Carr 1 year. Edwards misses blocks. I agree with that. I think maybe that's why Edwards isn't playing as much as he should. Jody 510 said, could we afford Adams and Gallup? Would you trade Waller and Jacobs for Kamara if we get Adams? Here's the thing.
Ooh, that's a lot.
We cannot afford Adams and Gallup, right?
See, to me, that's kind of like getting AB and what's his name? Williams. Was it Tyrell Williams? What was his name?
Tyrell Williams.
Yeah, so I mean that's what Gallup is kind of like that.
Yep.
I mean, do you want to overpay for like a mid-level wide receiver?
Yeah. No.
To me, like Gallup is basically in a similar range to like Edwards and Renfro and these guys.
Yes. So here's the thing though, right? Like Adams isn't going to sign or Gallup as an example. Adams may sign a 3-year contract, but Gallup wants a 4 or 5. He wants a long-term contract. So you're committing to him for the long term. I don't know if we have the cap long term to commit to these guys because Maxx and Carr and Yannick and Mullen and Abram, all these other guys, Josh, right, are going to need a contract extension sooner than later. So I don't know if you can afford both of those guys. I do think that we can afford maybe one of those guys. Devontae Adams, I think, would be a good fit. I think Michael Gallup might be a good fit too, but I don't know if Gallup has the same success with Derek Carr. I feel like Derek maybe needs like that bigger.
I don't think we need him. I think if we got Devontae at that point, Edwards, Renfro, all these guys would just become better receivers. Just having that stud next to them.
Now, would you trade Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs? Not necessarily for Kamara, but just in general. Would you trade them?
Okay, so let's just answer the Kamara part. Kamara's a running back. Me personally, I could be completely wrong about this, but right now I feel like Waller probably has more value than Kamara. It's just Kamara being a running back.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think obviously Darren Waller is Darren Waller, and I mean Kamara is definitely a really good football player, right? But you're right, he's a running back, and that does hinder his value a little bit. How much longer is Alvin Kamara going to last? Now, Alvin Kamara doesn't run the ball 20 times a game, right? He may have 8-9 carries, and then he'll have a bunch of catches and stuff like that. But he's already kind of getting banged up, right? He's already missing some time. Now, Josh Jacobs, I don't think it would be wise to extend him unless he signs for a cheap contract. Now, obviously, you look at a guy like Derrick Henry, and people would have said, "Oh, it's not wise to extend Derrick Henry, right? He's going to break down sooner than later." And Derrick Henry's still going.
I mean, he just got hurt right now, though.
And he just got hurt,
and this might just do it.
And we'll find
he
out.
Might never be the same again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the super chat.
Even Christian McCaffrey, man, I drafted him out in 3 of my fantasy leagues. And...
yeah, that sucks. That definitely sucks. Yeah. We need to give Gus time to build his defense. I agree with that. I mean, I definitely agree with that. Thank you for the super chat. Sanjit, 2 words, Garrett Wilson. I wouldn't be opposed to Garrett Wilson. I love Garrett Wilson coming out of Ohio State. I loved him last year, watching him play last year. They also have Olivier, or I don't know how to say his name. I think that's how you say his name. I think he is technically ranked higher than Wilson, but I would take either one of those guys. Wilson has that speed, man. That's definitely the Henry Ruggs replacement. Thank you for the super chat. Casey said, "What about drafting interior defensive linemen?" We had our opportunity last year. Honestly, I don't know if there's a Christian Barmore in this draft. I don't think there will be a Christian Barmore in the draft for a couple of years, right? You look at like the last good pass rushing defensive tackles that came out. Aaron Donald was obviously great. Chris Jones of the Chiefs has been great. I think the next guy, some people said it was supposed to be Ed Oliver or Quinton Williams. I think Quinton Williams has been really good. But I think Christian Barmore was that next set of really good pass rusher to come out of the draft. We don't get pass rushers every year to come out of the draft. It doesn't happen. Ed Oliver has not panned out yet. And they were saying he's going to be that next pass rushing guy. If we're going to get an interior defensive lineman, it has to be a pass rusher. Absolutely has to be a pass rusher. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed going live with you. We're about 1 hour and 30 minutes in, and I appreciate every single one of you guys that has tuned in. I'm going to be out here at my parents' house in Yuba City specifically for a couple of weeks, 2 months potentially. So maybe we can do this every single week. I go live after the post game. My goal is over the next month or two to quit my 9 to 5 and just be a full-time YouTuber, which means I will be going live 2 to 3 times a week. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I'll be going live much more often, get a bunch of, guys that I know out there, a bunch of, Raiders content creators, among other, non-Raider guys to come on the channel to just kind of talk football. So be tuned in for all that. Subscribe if you guys are already subscribed. Hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time with another video.
Go Raiders.